Zone and Lamb, nope, out of bounds. And that will do it.
I sucked tonight. No, that was it.
It's time once again to dunk on the Dallas Cowboys.
I threw all my cowboy gear in the trash last night.
The self-proclaimed America's team has been everyone's favorite squad to hate, suffering through a 28-season drought of not appearing in the NFC Championship game. The echoes of glory from the past, but a faded memory on a VCR tape somewhere. And all we can say to that is, laugh out f***ing loud. Their performances in the playoffs have been like car wrecks. Fascinating and horrific all at the same time. Let's dive into it. Examining the Cowboys' playoff futility is coming up right after this. New year, new goals, right? Like maybe locking down a girlfriend? Well, how can you accomplish that going out into the world with a big ass bush around your twig and berries? Yeah, I said it. Well, I have you covered. The Perfect Package 5.0 from Manscaped features the newly improved Lawnmower 5.0. The Lawnmower 5.0 features dual skin-safe blade heads, and the upgraded trimmer blade is wider and tougher for mowing down the thicker grass. But now we have the interchangeable foil blade to get that ultra-close, ultra-sheen finish. Put those dangerous razors away. Hair of every dang length is now removed with one trimmer. And even better, the light on the lawnmower has been upgraded to bigger and brighter. Plus, it has all the same great features: waterproof, travel lock, long battery life, 7,200 RPMs, and a battery indicator. The Perfect Package also comes with the Weed Whacker to trim your nose and ear hairs, Crop Soother and Crop Preserver ball deodorant, and 2 free gifts. So, after this video, head on over to manscaped.com/5-points and get 20% off the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra and free shipping. Again, that's manscaped.com/5-points for 20% off the Lawnmower 5.0 and free shipping. How they got their swagger? A lot of people point to the 90s as the time that the Cowboys took on their arrogant persona, winning 3 Super Bowls in the span of 4 years while switching head coaches during the process. Those Cowboy teams were so good you knew they were going to win the Super Bowl before the season even started. But it wasn't the 90s that gave rise to the asshole, arrogant Cowboy fans. That happened on pretty much day one. The team entered the NFL in 1960 and got to the championship 6 short years later, losing to the Packers twice. They made their first Super Bowl in 1970, won it the next year, and, well, you know the rest. The big star on the helmet combined with the common Texas attitude gave rise to the first really obnoxious national NFL fan base. By the time the 90s came, the Cowboy arrogance was a brand. But since then, a lot has changed. There is the salary cap and no more super teams. Oh yes, since the 90s it's been pure hell for Cowboys fans. All of the playoff losses. So the streak of futility started in 1996. They were actually the defending champs, coming off a win in Super Bowl 30. And if they knew that following their 26-17 loss to the Panthers and Kerry Collins was the beginning of the darkest period in franchise history, they might not have been so nonchalant about it. They made it back in 1998 and they still had pieces of their dynasty. It didn't matter. They lost in the wild card round to the Cardinals of all teams, 20-7. They lost to the Vikings 27-10 in 1999, and this loss would signal the end of that dynasty. It was Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith's last playoff game, and by now the defense had aged and looked pedestrian. Even Deion Sanders would move on to steal money from the redacteds. In the 2003 season, they somehow made the playoffs with Quincy Carter as their quarterback and lost to the Panthers again. And that brings us to the first of many painful yet hilarious losses. January 6, 2007. You might be asked these days where you were on January 6, 2021. But if you are old enough to remember this day back in 2007, it was a glorious day in history. After a rough start to the season, head coach Bill Parcells replaced Drew Bledsoe with Tony Romo in Week 8 and found a gem in the future Hall of Fame broadcaster. Romo went 6-4 down the stretch and brought an athletic dynamic to the position. It would be the start of his near decade-long run as the biggest target in Dallas. In a hard-fought game against the Seahawks, the Cowboys found themselves down 21-20 with a minute 14 left. Romo had artfully put his team in position to take the lead with a chip shot field goal. Now, what's insane about this season is that because Romo started the year as the backup, he was also still the team's placeholder on kicks. Of course, we all know what happened. You would think that this would be their most embarrassing playoff loss. However, January 13th, 2008, the 2007 season was a magical one for the Dallas Cowboys. A 13-3 record, the 1 seed. Hell, they got out to a 12-1 start. It was Super Bowl or bust. Since the team earned a bye, photos surfaced of Tony Romo and Jason Witten frolicking in Cabo during their week off. Pundits raised eyebrows. In the penultimate season for Texas Stadium, the Cowboys hosted the 10-6 wildcard Giants. And from the start, things did not look good for the boys. However, they calmed down, and a TD by the late Marion Barber with 53 seconds left in the half seemed like all was right. And in 46 seconds, that comfort disappeared. The Giants tied it going into half, and the Cowboys fans' buttholes started to clinch. The second half was grueling, hard-hitting football. The Cowboys scored on their opening drive. However, they would not score again. The Giants took the lead early in the fourth quarter and then began a relentless attack on the Cowboys' offense. Patrick Creighton missed a ball that hit him in the face. Finally, they got something going on the last drive of the game, and then, 13-3. The 1 seed. Done. Those picks of Romo and Cabo became front page news. You would think that this would be their most embarrassing playoff loss. Nope, not by a long shot. 2 years later, they actually won a playoff game, beating down the Eagles in the wild card round, then getting thoroughly worked by the Brett Favre-led Vikings 34-3. The next year, Romo got hurt, and yes man Wade Phillips was fired for even more yes man Jason Garrett, aka the Clapper, aka Mr. 8-8, which they did do for 3 years in a row until 2014. Here we go. January 11th, 2015. The 12-4 Cowboys came into Lambeau Field and they looked good. Despite the cold, the Cowboys had battled hard. However, they were trailing 26-21 late in the fourth quarter and faced a fourth down deep into Packer territory. Little did they know that this was about to be one of the most controversial plays of all time. You know what happens next. Dez Bryant catches the ball, takes 3 steps, extends towards the goal line, and then drops the ball after completing the catch. That's what the ruling would be today. The Cowboys would have had first and goal down 5 with 4:42 left in the game. But Mike McCarthy and the Packers challenged the play, and the refs ruled that Dez Bryant did not maintain possession throughout the entire process. A process in which he had time to cook an omelet before he hit the ground. Look, I hate the Cowboys. I'm making this video for fuck's sake. That was a fucking catch. It's not even up for debate. Romo and Bryant read the coverage perfectly. In fact, Romo gave him a thumbs up because they knew what was about to happen. Laugh out loud though, the Cowboys still lost, and somehow this isn't even their most embarrassing loss to the Packers in the playoffs. January 15th, 2017. The 2016 season was a magical one for the Dallas Cowboys. After a Tony Romo injury in the preseason, a rookie named Dakota Rain Prescott took over and never gave his job back. But little did he know he would carry on Tony Romo's legacy. After a 13-3 season, the Cowboys hosted the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round. The NFC's top seed roared back from a 28-13 deficit to tie it late. Mason Crosby gave the Packers the lead with 1:33 left, and then the Cowboys answered back a minute later, but left 35 seconds on the clock. Surely this game would go to overtime, with the Cowboys having a huge advantage being at home, right? Especially after this sack of Aaron Rodgers, right? Oh no, Cowboys. What are you doing? The sideline too? With no timeouts? Kick is up. It's good. The boys lost to the Rams in 2018, then to the Niners in back-to-back seasons. The first ending with a Dak Prescott sneak and time expiring, and the second ending with Ezekiel Elliott playing center. And still Mike McCarthy didn't get fired after this. And that leads us to January 14th, 2024. The 2023 NFL season was wild. The Eagles got out to a hot start and talked a lot of shit, and both conferences have been pretty much wide open. The Cowboys came from behind to take the NFC East and at times looked like a Super Bowl contender. Well, except when the Niners took them behind the woodshed. So when they got a home playoff game against the 7th seed Packers, a team playing with house money, it looked like them boys got a dream matchup that would be just a speed bump. Right? Fuck no. Dak looked like absolute shit. The defense made Jordan Love look like Aaron Rodgers. For all the embarrassing late Cowboy losses to the Packers, this one was somehow worse. It was pathetic, insulting, devastating. Everyone in Frisco ought to be worried about their office being cleaned out. Dak Prescott included. Congratulations. Now, before we get to what the Cowboys should do, let's look at their playoff drought by the numbers. The Packers have the same amount of playoff wins in AT&T Stadium that the Cowboys do. 2. Additionally, the Packers have never lost their regular season or not, and no number 7 seed had ever beaten a number 2 until Sunday. The number 1 seed makes it to the Super Bowl 50% of the time, and 52% of number 1 seeds win the Super Bowl. The Cowboys have been the number 1 seed twice since 1996, and they didn't make no Super Bowl. The Cowboys have been one and done 8 times in that same span. Dak Prescott is 2-5 all time in the playoffs. The Cowboys are the first team to notch 12 wins 3 years in a row and not make the conference championship game. Speaking of, the Cowboys are 0-13 in playoff appearances without making the NFC championship game. That's the longest streak of its kind. Okay, enough dunking. That was a lot of dunking. Where do the Cowboys go from here? It's pretty obvious what needs to be done. Fire Mike McCarthy into the sun. It's hard to believe he's only been the coach for 4 years, but if you're a Cowboy fan, every day with him at the helm has seemed like a fucking eternity. Packers fans warned you about him. Aaron Rodgers won them a ring despite Mike McCarthy. He's not the guy. And that brings us to Jera. He is the de facto GM, and quite honestly, he's put together some good teams. The only problem with the Cowboys in terms of roster construction I can point to is that they're always trying to add everything instead of developing an identity. They aren't a defensive team. They aren't an offensive team. They are a regular season team. Jones' loyalty to players has hurt him, especially giving Zeke a second contract when he was clearly washed. But man, if he hasn't hit on picks like Micah Parsons or Trayvon Diggs, who they missed badly in the playoffs. Now Dak. Dak leaves a lot more questions than answers. At times he looks unbeatable, an MVP candidate. And then January rolls around. He disappears like daddy going out for cigarettes. And he was atrocious against the Packers. Overall though, I think he is a good QB. There are a lot of teams that would love to have Dak Prescott as their starter. But how much longer does he have? Finally, if the Cowboys are smart enough to fire McCarthy, who do you hire? Is Jerry willing to bring in Belichick, a guy who is not a yes man? Or does he find some young hotshot to go 9-8 for 4 seasons? Who knows? All I can say is, let's all revel in the glow of yet another lost season. How about them Cowboys?
I tried to tell y'all suck. You were worried about us. You need to worry about your team. Extend Dak Prescott right now.